Hi, welcome to another deep dive with us.
Yeah, glad to be back.
So today, we're diving into something pretty weighty. It's the SBI Foundation Annual Report, 2023-24 to be precise. This is one of those documents that can easily get lost in the shuffle, but it's actually packed with insights into how a major financial institution is approaching social responsibility.
Oh, it's fascinating stuff, really. We're talking about the CSR arm of the State Bank of India Group, their mission. Well, it's all about inclusive and sustainable development, which is something we hear a lot these days. But it's really about seeing how these concepts translate into action, right?
Totally. And the scale of what they're doing is pretty mind-blowing. In this one year, they impacted over 30.7 million lives. That's not a typo. Over 30 million people across, get this, 28 states and 7 union territories.
Yeah, 220 projects. And they dispersed over 217 crore rupees. It's a reminder that these large institutions can have a huge footprint, and how they choose to use that influence really matters. So what we're going to try and do today is unpack this report, see what kind of programs they're implementing, and most importantly, what kind of impact they're having on the ground.
Makes sense. And speaking of impact, why don't we start with Jivanam? That's their healthcare vertical, right?
Yep, Jivanam. And right off the bat, this report highlights a problem, a pretty significant one. You see, 70% of India's population lives in rural areas, but only 30% of the healthcare infrastructure is actually accessible to them.
Wow, so there's a major gap there.
Major. And you can imagine what that means, right? People falling into poverty because of healthcare costs or just not having access to basic health services. So Jivan steps in with this sort of holistic approach, mobile clinics, support for hospitals and equipment, specialized treatments, and really emphasizing community empowerment.
They seem to be hitting it from all angles.
They are. And I think that's what's interesting here. It's not just about treating illness, but really building a foundation for better health overall. For example, let's talk about SBI TB Care, their tuberculosis project. They're using these mobile units in places like Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, going right into communities to detect and treat TB early on, and they've already helped over 2,800 people.
So it's about being proactive, going to where the need is, right?
Right. Especially in areas where access to healthcare is limited, this kind of outreach can be a game changer. Early detection, that's key for TB.
Makes sense. And then there's the work they're doing with maternal and child health through SBI Matrikaya. They're actually equipping healthcare centers in Odisha and Jharkhand, making sure they have what they need to provide quality care for mothers and newborns.
It's about strengthening those front lines, making sure that essential care is available right where it's needed. Think about it. Healthier pregnancies, healthier babies. That's a foundation for a healthier future for those communities.
Really powerful stuff. And they're doing a lot with eye care too, right?
Yeah.
SBI Eye Care is operating in West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, and Rajasthan, providing screenings, surgeries, and follow-up care.
Yeah. Imagine restoring someone's sight. Think about the difference that makes. It impacts their ability to work, to learn, to participate fully in their community. And it alleviates a lot of pressure on families who might otherwise be struggling to provide that care. It's about independence and dignity.
Absolutely. And it's good to see that they're addressing mental health as well.
Right, that often gets overlooked. They're supporting destitute women in Maharashtra, and they've provided decentralized mental health care services to about 9,000 patients there.
Mental health is so crucial, especially in rural areas where there might be even more stigma around seeking help.
Exactly. Making it accessible at the community level, that's crucial. And they're even providing palliative care, helping to improve the quality of life for those facing serious illnesses.
When you think about it, that's an important aspect of healthcare that often gets forgotten. It's not always about curing, but also about comfort and dignity, right?
Exactly. It's a holistic approach. And they haven't forgotten about preventative care either, with cancer screenings for a staggering 117,000 people. Early detection, we know that's so important for successful treatment.
Really proactive. And beyond specific programs, they're strengthening the healthcare system as a whole, right? Supporting hospitals, community health centers, even utilizing telehealth care to reach remote areas.
It's a long-term vision, building a more resilient and accessible system.
And they're not forgetting about education. Those community empowerment initiatives, the health campaigns, the organ donation program that reached 4 lakh people. It's all about empowering individuals to take charge of their health.
Health literacy, that's essential. It's about giving people the knowledge and the tools to make informed decisions. And when you see stories like From Despair to Dignity in this report, you see how these efforts actually translate to individual lives, right? It's not just numbers, it's real people.
It's those stories that really stick with you. And it's great that their work is getting recognized, like with the CSR awards for Project SBI San Giovanni. It shows that their efforts are having a real impact on the ground.
Absolutely. Validation, it's important. But more than that, it helps to raise awareness, maybe even inspire others to take action.
Okay, so beyond healthcare, they have a really interesting program called Gram Sevada.
Yeah.
It's all about rural development, right?
Yeah, it's about taking a holistic approach to uplifting entire villages. And when I say holistic, I mean it. They're working on digital access, education, healthcare, sanitation, economic empowerment, you name it.
So they're working on multiple fronts simultaneously.
They are. For instance, under digitalization, they're setting up community information centers or Gram Seva Kendras. These centers provide online access to things like government schemes, job opportunities, and banking services.
Bridging that digital divide is so crucial, especially in rural areas.
Absolutely. And they're not just focusing on infrastructure, they're also thinking about skills with e-learning platforms for young people. It's about giving them the tools to succeed in a digital world.
And of course, education is key. They're providing scholarships to talented children. They're running remedial classes to help kids catch up. It's all about investing in the future, right?
Right. Education is that foundation for long-term development. And they're not just focused on academics, they're addressing healthcare needs in these villages too, with the mobile medical vans, health camps, and upgrading those existing healthcare centers.
So they're taking that same comprehensive approach, bringing healthcare closer to those communities.
They are. And even waste management is on their radar. They're setting up soak pits, biogas plants, vermicompost pits. They're providing those essential waste collection vehicles. It's about sanitation, hygiene, but also about creating a healthier environment, more sustainable practices.
Really thoughtful. And they're taking economic empowerment seriously, right? They're supporting entrepreneurial ventures, helping farmers adopt more resilient agricultural practices, like organic farming.
That's all about creating sustainable livelihoods, giving people the tools to lift themselves out of poverty.
And it seems like they're putting a lot of focus on youth development. They're talking about things like the Urseti training, those rural self-employment training institutes, the pre-Rana stitching centers, scholarships, support for sports and employment pathways.
They're investing in the potential of young people, giving them skills and opportunities. That's crucial for the future of these villages.
And I see they're running these networking and awareness programs, too. That's interesting.
It's about bringing people together, raising awareness about things like family planning, hygiene, but also about celebrating community, strengthening those social bonds.
Makes sense. And this Gram Saction project sounds interesting. They're expanding it to more villages, focusing on natural resource management and livelihood creation.
It's about empowering communities to manage their own resources sustainably, which is key for long-term development.
Okay, so they're tackling environmental issues as well, with the SBI Jan Van initiative, planting tons of trees and all those water conservation projects.
Those are huge. You know, better water management that directly translates to better agricultural yields, better food security.
And I love that they have this program called SBI Saptarshi, specifically targeting infrastructure improvements in villages with high concentrations of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Smart classrooms, water filters, things like that.
Yeah, it's about addressing those existing inequalities, making sure that everyone has access to those basic necessities.
They even have a story in the report about how their support enabled a young person from a rural village to join the Indian Army called Impact We Create, from farm fields to national service.
It's a powerful reminder of how these programs can ripple outward, impacting not just individuals, but the nation as a whole. So inspiring. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about their Youth for India Fellowship, the YFI. This one seems really interesting.
It is. So imagine this. You're a young professional, and you get the opportunity to spend 13 months immersed in a rural community, working on innovative solutions to real-world problems. That's YFI.
Sounds like an incredible learning experience.
It is. They partner with experienced NGOs, and they focus on 12 specific areas, so there's a lot of diversity in the kind of projects they take on.
And they're making a real impact. This 11th batch had 54 fellows working across 11 states. And since they started in 2011, they've got this whole network of over 580 alumni who are continuing to make a difference.
Yeah, think about the ripple effect, right?
Hmm.
All these young people going back into their communities or even starting their own social ventures, armed with this experience and this passion to make a difference. It's really powerful.
And they're even helping them get those ventures off the ground, right? With that SBI, YFI, SIOG, the Pitch Fest. They're providing seed funding to alumni who want to turn their ideas into action. Exactly. It's not just about the experience, it's about giving them that crucial support to launch their own initiatives. And we see the results, right? 8 alumni got funding this year, so it's working.
The report gives some really cool examples of those YFI Sahयोग projects, like rural entrepreneurship development, WIH initiatives, even a millet cookies enterprise.
The diversity of issues they're tackling is amazing. They're really addressing those local needs, coming up with creative solutions, and
And the fellow impact stories are so inspiring. Janvi Rathod working on preserving the Sara language, Tanmay Mulay developing community-based tourism, Shivani Verma focused on those crucial land and water resources. It's amazing what they're achieving.
each one of those fellows is a catalyst for change, making a difference in those communities. And when you look at the numbers, they reached over 80 villages in 2023-24, partnered with 13 NGOs, impacting over 20,000 people. That's real reach.
That's incredible. Okay, so let's move on to their education initiatives, specifically the Integrated Learning Mission, or ILM. This is all about addressing the issue of equitable access to quality education, which is so fundamental.
Right. It all starts with education, and ILM takes this multi-pronged approach, focusing on things like creating quality content, building teacher capacity, strengthening those government school systems, and improving access to higher education.
So they're not just working on one level, they're tackling the entire system.
Exactly. Let's start with content creation. They're developing localized learning materials in various languages, like the Learn, Play, Grow project in Meghalaya, which created those ECCE materials, or the work they're doing to improve the curriculum for grades 4-7 in Uttar Pradesh. And they even partnered with Khan Academy to create localized content in Punjabi.
So they're making sure that the materials are relevant and engaging for those specific communities. That's so important.
Localization is key. And they're even developing materials that address specific needs, like mental health training manuals through the SIMA project, or support materials for students with neurodevelopmental disorders.
It's great that they're taking those diverse needs into account.
Absolutely. Inclusive education, that's the goal. And they're not just focusing on content, they're investing in teacher training as well. They trained thousands of educators this year on everything from early childhood care to adolescent mental health and supporting students with NDD.
Yeah, because teachers are on the front lines, right? They're the ones who implement those programs and really make a difference in the classroom.
Exactly. And they're working directly with government school systems to bring about those larger systemic changes. Think about the Sea Kids centers they established in Rajasthan, those safe playrooms in Delhi municipal schools, even providing basic facilities in other states. It's about working within the system to create those lasting improvements.
And they're addressing access to higher education, too. They have the SBIF Asha Scholarship Program, which is already supporting over 3,000 students, and they're aiming to reach 10,000 by 2025.
That's ambitious. And it's not just financial aid. They're supporting those residential centers for underprivileged students who are preparing for competitive exams, like the Army Center of Wellness and Excellence, and that Future Women Leaders program, which is helping talented women from low-income backgrounds access those top universities.
It's all about breaking down those barriers, right? Giving everyone a chance to succeed.
Exactly. And when you read stories like Renuma's, a girl from a slum in Ahmedabad who achieved academic excellence thanks to the Ganshala initiative, you see how impactful these programs can be. It's about transforming lives through education.
It's those personal stories that really bring it home. And the overall impact of ILM is just staggering. Millions of students reached, thousands of educators trained, thousands of institutions transformed. It's making a real difference in the education landscape in India.
They're tackling the challenge head-on, and the results are there for all to see.
All right, so let's talk about their work with persons with disabilities.
Love.
The Center of Excellence for PWDs, or COE as they call it. It's a really important initiative.
It is. The COE is all about empowering individuals with disabilities, helping them develop their skills and enhance their abilities. It's about fostering independence and inclusion.
And they have a three-pronged approach. Samagra Shiksha, which focuses on inclusive education, Swavlam Ban, which is all about skill development and employment, and Care, which provides that holistic support throughout their lives.
It's a comprehensive approach addressing those needs across their lifespan. So let's start with Samagra Shiksha. They're providing that comprehensive educational support for children and youth with disabilities all the way from ages 0 to 18.
Wow, that's a long commitment.
It is. And they're paying special attention to those with more complex needs, like children with multiple disabilities and visual impairments, the MDVI. And they're working with government primary schools to make those environments more inclusive.
It's about ensuring that everyone has access to quality education, regardless of their abilities.
Exactly. And then we have Swavlamban, which means self-reliance. That's a perfect name for it. They're all about skill development, vocational training, creating employment opportunities. It's about empowering individuals to become economically independent.
That's so important for their self-esteem and for their integration into society.
Right. And then there's care. That's where you see the breadth of their support. They're working with children with mental and multiple disabilities. They're upgrading those clinical services, providing specialized eye care. They're supporting abandoned children with disabilities, giving them nutrition, therapy, vocational training, shelter renovation. They're offering support for neurodevelopmental disorders and life skills training for young adults.
It's amazing how comprehensive their approach is. They're really covering every aspect of care.
It's about ensuring that people with disabilities have the support they need to live fulfilling lives. And it's not just about providing services, it's about empowering them. Like that story in the report, Bridging Hope, about the ASA worker who helped get a child with clubfoot the treatment he needed.
It shows how a little bit of support can make a huge difference.
Exactly. And they're doing some really innovative things too, like Dialogue in the Dark, which is all about promoting empathy and inclusivity, or the Improving Mobility in Goa initiative, where they've deployed these wheelchair e-rickshaws.
That's brilliant. It's providing accessibility and also potential livelihood opportunities.
They're thinking outside the box. And they're getting recognized for it too. They received some pretty significant awards this year. They launched some important facilities like the Institute for the Blind and Eye Care Center. They're participating in events like the International Purple Fest and Global Accessibility Awareness Day.
They're really becoming a force to be reckoned with in this space.
They are, and it's great to see.
Okay, so now let's talk about ELI, their Livelihood and Entrepreneurship Accelerator Program.
LEEP. This one is all about breaking that cycle of poverty, transforming lives through economic empowerment. They're aligning their efforts with the UN SDG 1, which is all about eradicating poverty.
So they're taking it seriously.
Absolutely. And they're doing it through some really targeted initiatives, things like enhancing rural incomes through sustainable agriculture and livestock practices, supporting entrepreneurship ecosystem development, fostering innovation through incubation and acceleration, providing skills training in those future-ready sectors like BFSI and IT, and really importantly, building strong community institutions.
It's a pretty comprehensive approach, right? Attacking the problem from multiple angles.
Exactly. So let's break it down. With enhancing rural incomes, they're promoting climate-resilient agriculture techniques, giving farmers access to better inputs and farm mechanization, helping them get better market access. They even have a goal to double the income for 30,000 small farmers in MP. And they've already helped to create 13,000 new enterprises.
That's fantastic. So it's about making farming more profitable and more sustainable, especially in the face of climate change.
Right. And their Innovator for Pirat initiative is all about supporting those high-impact incubators and startups. They've got the largest hub for AI and ML in BFSI in partnership with IIT Bombay. And they're supporting some amazing startups like FarmDidi, which was even featured on Shark Tank.
That's really cool.
It is. It's about driving innovation at the grassroots level, creating solutions that are tailored to those local challenges.
And their Skilling for Future initiative is so important. They're training young people in those high-growth sectors, BFSI and IT, and they're ensuring that at least 25% of the trainees are persons with disabilities.
It's about inclusivity and preparing young people for the jobs of the future, and the results are impressive. 60% job placement rate, with salaries starting at 2.43 lakhs per annum.
That's fantastic. They even have these SAMI IP project, specifically targeting PWDs in the BFSI sector in those major cities.
They're really committed to making sure everyone has access to those opportunities.
And they're not forgetting about community institutions, right? Supporting those farmer-producer organizations, or FPOs, giving them the skills and the market linkages they need to thrive.
It's about empowering those communities to take control of their own economic destiny.
They've even got this new SBI Foundation, Community Facility Center, which I think is a great way to bring people together and create those value addition opportunities.
It's a hub, a place for collaboration and growth.
And they're partnering with organizations like Vilgrow to incubate agri-startups And they have the SBI Foundation and CCAMP AMR Challenge to support those startups working on antimicrobial resistance.
They're being very strategic about their partnerships, finding those experts who can really help them make a difference.
And it's working. Just look at the impact numbers. Over 100,000 direct beneficiaries spanning across 16 states, thousands of youth skilled, hundreds of community institutions formed, startups supported, farmers empowered. It's making a tangible difference.
It's about creating those ripples of change that spread outward, impacting not just individuals, but entire communities.
Okay, let's switch gears again and talk about their environmental conservation program, CONSERW.
All right, CONSERW. It stands for Conservation Through Sustainable Engagement, Restoration, and Wildlife Protection. Kind of a mouthful, but it really captures their comprehensive approach to environmental issues.
Yeah, it seems like they're tackling everything from responsible consumption and production to renewable energy adoption, wildlife protection, and ecosystem restoration.
They are. They're recognizing that we need to protect our natural resources while also meeting the needs of our communities. It's about finding that balance.
So let's start with SBIF Aranya, their big ecosystem restoration initiative. They've been planting a lot of trees. Like a lot.
Oh, yeah. Over 100,000 indigenous trees planted in Rajasthan alone. And they're creating those Miyawaki forests, which are these really dense, biodiverse mini forests. They've even restored mangrove ecosystems in Kerala, planting over 2 lakh saplings and seeds.
Mangroves are so important, right? They're those coastal ecosystems that protect against storms and provide habitats for all sorts of marine life.
Exactly. And they're not stopping there. They're aiming to plant millions more trees and rejuvenate those Himalayan springs, which are crucial water sources for communities downstream. It's a long-term vision.
And it's great that they're incorporating livelihood creation into these efforts, helping communities benefit from those non-timber forest products. It's about creating a sustainable model.
Absolutely. And it's not just about planting trees. They're tackling waste management as well. Their Waste No More project is turning towns into model sanitation areas, helping to implement effective waste management practices in places like Panna and Dakshina, Canada.
Yeah, waste management is a huge issue, especially in those rapidly developing areas.
It is. And they're even partnering with organizations to recycle textile waste. That's a really innovative approach to tackling that growing problem.
It is.
Yeah.
And their wildlife conservation efforts are pretty amazing, too. They're working to protect endangered species like the red panda, setting up those solar-powered patrolling camps, reintroducing vultures, mitigating human-wildlife conflict.
It's all about preserving India's rich biodiversity, finding ways for humans and wildlife to coexist peacefully.
And they're promoting renewable energy as well. I love that story about Fidamshan village in Sikkim, the waste to victory story.
Oh, it's amazing what they accomplished. They turned their waste management challenges into an opportunity, becoming the cleanest village in Sikkim.
And their work in Udalguri, Assam, to mitigate human-elephant conflict is really inspiring. They're replenishing those elephant habitats and helping farmers switch to elephant-resistant crops.
It's about finding those practical solutions that benefit both the community and the environment.
Okay, so I know we're running short on time, but we have to at least touch on their other initiatives, like ACE and Sashakti.
Okay, quickly, ACE is all about empowering athletes, right? They're supporting weightlifters, para-badminton players, even helping some aim for the Paralympic Games. It's about fostering excellence and making sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate.
And then there's Sashakti, which focuses on empowering women at the grassroots level.
Yeah, economic empowerment, that's key for gender equality. And the story of that Himalaya Hill fresh fruit processing group in HP is a great example. Those women went from being agricultural laborers to successful entrepreneurs.
That's amazing. And I just want to quickly mention all the awards and recognition that the SBI Foundation and its programs have received. It really speaks to the quality and the impact of their work.
It does. And let's not forget about the sheer scale of their financial commitment. They dispersed a total of 217 crore rupees this year.
And they're a Section 8 company, right?
Yeah.
So all that money is going right back into their mission.
Exactly. No profits, just impact.
So to sum it all up, it's pretty clear that the SBI Foundation is doing some really incredible work. They're touching millions of lives, tackling some of India's most pressing challenges, and they're doing it with a holistic and sustainable approach.
This deep dive really showcases what's possible when you combine vision, commitment, and resources. They're not just talking about change, they're actually making it happen.
Absolutely. And it's really inspiring to see. So for all of you listening out there, We encourage you to take a closer look at the work the SBI Foundation is doing and to think about how you can contribute to creating positive change in your own communities.
It's a reminder that each one of us has the power to make a difference, no matter how big or small.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
See you next time.